What is the biggest it's one banana? What can it cost? $10? Moment you've witnessed in real life? There was an obscenely rich kid that I went to high school with. At lunch one day, he thought his friend's peanut butter and jelly sandwich looked good, so he offered him $20 for it. For the rest of the school year, the friend brought 2 sandwiches to lunch every day and gave the rich kid one for $20. I worked for one family as the general family personal assistant for a long time. These people are wealthy. Like drop $1 million in cash on an oceanfront condo wealthy. The husband gave me $150 cash to go to the grocery store to buy a 12-pack of water and 6-1 yogurts. I don't think he's even stepped foot in a grocery store before. I assume you gave back the $10 in change and everything was good, right? I was flying a private jet and the caterers forgot the owner's sandwich. He graciously said no big deal, and I replied that I'd call when we landed because they charged $100 for it. He said, is that a lot? How much does a sandwich normally cost? Had a client who dealt with one of America's richest men back in the late 1990s. He took him out for a night on the town and had to stop at an ATM. The rich guy had never seen one. His staff just got him cash when he needed it. It's a different life. A customer called me about a mistake on their bill. They thought I forgot to add another zero. I'm a landscaper. Mostly softscape and property maintenance. Oh. Let me fix that for you right away. Thank you so much for letting me know my error. I'll give you a 10% discount for your honesty. I got a new job slightly above minimum wage and my girlfriend's dad got excited for me and told me I could afford a new Tesla now. Spoiler, I cannot. I was friends with a girl whose family was rich. And she said stuff like that constantly. Personally, I like when she said I'm going to my dorm this weekend. I think what I've been looking for is there. She has her own apartment. Her parents pay for a dorm for her for extra storage. She has a roommate and everything. Her roommate lives with all her junk. My sister and I, both Latin American, befriended a Chinese girl in college. We always helped her in studying and with her English. Turns out her dad was some billionaire in China who owned a chemical producing company. She drove an expensive Audi, and for the longest, up until 2 years ago, I was freeloading off the check account she opened up for me. That account was paid for about 3 years. Whenever she'd invite us to go eat, the bills were super expensive. Like $300 plus for just 3 people. But she played it off like they were nothing. I had never once eaten a single meal over $40 per plate until we ate with her. She'd always take us Starbucks food and on a couple occasions bought us books for school. At one point we went shopping with her. She wanted a laptop. She was gonna buy me one too, but I felt guilty to accept it. Laptop was $3,000, some Apple laptop. I felt like it was too much. She was really cool and treated my sister like her sister. She was living alone and didn't know many people. We were always friendly with classmates and that's how she got to know us. My sister and I are from low-income families. The money that was spent around her was ridiculous. Like $300, $400 plus per lunch almost every day. That was around my weekly pay back then. Really miss her though. She was funny to be around with and always wanted to learn more about the US. Always insisted we go out with her to movies, shopping or dining and teach her about our culture. Have not heard from her in 3 years. She went back to China and we never saw her on campus again. A friend of mine was dating a super wealthy girl in college. Not sure how they got together. It was some internship thing or something. He grew up pretty poor. And he told me a story about how they were at Walmart and he was considering buying a pair of flip-flops. But they were like $10 and he wasn't so sure it was something he could afford at the time. Apparently she said to him, "What do you mean? You don't know if you should get them? Whenever I want new clothes, I just ask my daddy for the money card." She literally used the phrase "the money card" as if it was some weird artifact that magically made all clothes free for her, which I guess it kinda did. He also told me she felt the need to take a full shower every time she pooped. Which, I mean, that's a different thing. But still funny. I once got asked to watch my buddy's mom's dog. Cute Pomeranian. Super well behaved. I was stoked to watch the little dude. She messaged me and told me where the garage key was and that she left a couple $100 on the table for me. A couple hundred. I showed up at noon and took the money and the dog and went into town. Took him to the dog park. Then the beach. And then we kicked it and napped for a couple hours. Dropped him off around 6 p.m. It was the easiest $200 I've ever made. The president of my company asked me if I thought I could live on $100 per day. I told him I did every single day. I was probably making $13.14 at the time. So out of touch with reality when that's what one makes in an hour. My dad, who is very wealthy and very stingy, once offered to get me out of a tough situation financially. I didn't have a car and was really struggling to make ends meet. I was telling him about what was going on in my life. And he opens up his wallet and hands me all of its contents. It was $7. He kept saying how he'll give me everything he has. And hands me the $7. He felt really proud doing it too. I work at a veterinary hospital in a fairly wealthy area. Once had a client hand me a $50 for a $9 nail trim on her dog. I told her the price and she just shrugged. Told me to keep the change and said that would be my lunch money for the week. My wife's mom paid me $100 to cut her grass and her yard is small. I grew up in a very well-to-do suburb and there was a family that would buy cedar clothes hangers for their closets. But then once the cedar smell wore off after a month or so, they'd buy new ones and take the old ones to Goodwill. Apparently just lightly sanding them to refresh the scent was too much trouble. I am clearly too poor since I've never heard of having cedar hangers. I worked at the concession stand at a movie theater and it was opening weekend for a large Marvel movie and the line was super long to get popcorn. This rich millionaire dude from India walked up to me and handed me his Amex Black card and waved a hand over the entire line of customers and said whatever they want my friend and plopped it down hard on the glass counter. I'm just like, are you sure? Him. What either they want? With a huge smile on his face. He waited as the entire line ordered tons of food. Entire combos. Large everything. Extra candy. I was like, you total is up. $10,718.62 and I swiped the card and it said transaction complete and he said thank you my friend and he went to watch his movie having fed everybody in line. Absolutely unreal moment. And no, I didn't get a tip or anything, but now I have a cool story to tell on Reddit. Complete strangers with just an unlimited budget to spend on movie snacks and drinks thanks to this man they didn't even know. Chaotic good. My pop's grandfather handled all the finances for him and my nana, grandmother. So she never did the shopping or paid any bills. Her net worth now as a widow isn't shy of £1 million. When Pops died, she bought herself a brand new car that was tailored to her disabilities. Because again, Pops always did the driving. Her car was around £16k. This was her first experience of buying a vehicle and thus thought this was the standard price for any car. I bought myself a new car a few months later. It was the same model as hers but a few years older and had previous owners. All my other cars had come in under £600. And this new car was £5k and I took it out on finance. Which was a huge deal for me. When she asked how much my car was, she was terrified that I'd bought a rundown pose car. And that there must be something horrendously wrong with it. We had to explain the value of cars to her and why mine was £10k less than hers. Flash forward to this year. My broke AF brother's death trap car pretty much exploded. So she took him to buy a new one. He'd seen a pretty good car for just under £1k and figured that's what he could afford to pay back. Before he mentions it, she drags him to the dealership and buys an approved used car, same model and year as mine, at £3k and can't believe her luck at how cheap it was. And gifts it to him because it was so cheap. Brother is speechless and very grateful. This is the same woman who had an absolute meltdown because her ambrosia custard pops had risen in price by 20p and she was now, very seriously, concerned that her continued purchase of them would bankrupt her. Kinda the opposite. But I once went out with the ultra wealthy parents of this girl I was dating and they made a big deal of me ordering whatever I wanted and getting appetizers and dessert and drinks and everything. And once I put in like a $75 single person order. Her dad just ordered 2 hot dogs and laughed at how expensive my meal was. It was the most expensive lunch I had ever had at that point, and I really respect that man's trollery. He had a much better sense of humor than his daughter. It's not cost wise. But in college my best friend and her dad had to take Metro North out of Nick to Westchester. We were in Grand Central and he asked her to get the tickets, whatever first class tickets they had. There are no first class tickets for Metro North. They are all the same. When we were told the international tuition fees for a PhD were $30,000 and my mom said, well, that's not that much money. She also occasionally complains about how they are living in poverty, while also taking yearly trips to Europe. On the other hand, they can be quite generous with their time and support. So they can get away with the occasional tone-deaf comment. I asked a girl at a party if she had some cash to buy more alcohol and she gave me $500. That's when I realized she was drunk as hell. I told my parents they were rich. My mom has worked a 6-figure job for 30 plus years. And my dad worked one for 20 plus. They have 2 houses. 2 cars, nice ones. Go on yearly vacations to the tropics on top of other stuff. Paid for my sisters and my university college out of pocket. I could go on. My dad said he wasn't rich. I worked at a very expensive and exclusive country club. The type you'd see the Bluffs at. One of the members drove her golf cart over from her house and said the help had forgotten to buy a loaf of bread and wanted to buy one from our kitchen. I told her that we couldn't sell her a loaf of bread. So she asked how many sandwiches a loaf of bread can make. I ended up selling her 10 sandwiches with nothing on it at $7 piece. I have an aunt and uncle who are both experienced aerospace engineers, retired military officers, now higher ups at private contractors. So they make an obscene amount of money. You can always tell how much they've lost touch with the value of a dollar when you look at presents they've bought. One time years ago at Christmas, they bought my aunt a $600 iPod and my mom a $20 trillion shirt. They didn't mean any insult. They just thought my mom would like a shirt better and that my aunt would like an iPod better. And they didn't even look at the prices of them.